All right. Hi, everyone. We are calling out the executive trap of over engineering, over analyzing, and over controlling, and mistaking that for good leadership. So we'll highlight how this false sense of control dulls the agility, it burns out high performers, and it delays innovation. So the key message is that I want you to take away is that control doesn't equal power, but adaptability does. So I want you to think about this. You're not leading, you're probably over managing. And the truth is, your obsession with control is the very thing that's sabotaging your growth. And if everything feels under control, that means you're not moving fast enough. So, this is a statement I want you to take away from this episode. Control feels safe, but in leadership, safety is often disguised as stagnation. And we definitely don't want that to happen. And so, welcome to the Remarkable Edge Live Series show. This is the Executive Power Series. I am your host, Dr. Vernita Glenn-White. I go by Dr. V, the Brilliance Solutionist and the Master Recalibration Strategist for Brilliance, Authority, and Precision. I'm an executive advisor and leadership intelligence architect for high-stakes organizations. I don't just coach or consult, I systemize transformation. So, from education systems to enterprise teams, I spent 20 plus years, I know, helping leaders close the execution gap and build intelligent ecosystems that scale. So, this show is where bold execution meets intelligent design, where elite professionals come to rethink leadership, realign performance, and build organizations that actually work. So, if you're done playing by outdated rules and you're ready to architect results that drive revenue, retention, and real influence, let's get to work. So, let me be clear. This episode is not for the faint of heart. It is for decision makers, the power players, the executives, and the founders who always believe that control equals security. But what if I told you your need for control is silently undermining your leadership, your influence, and your company's growth? And so let's talk about the trap of tactical mastery. So you're not burned out because you're not productive. You're burned out because you are over functioning. The illusion of control often looks like micromanaging in the name of standards, creating layers of approval that choke the momentum, and saying yes to everything because you can't afford mistakes. And if you can't see me, you're doing air quotes because you think you can't afford mistakes. So this is tactical excellence masquerading itself as strategic leadership. It's the executive version of perfectionism. So there is a personal version and now there's an executive version. It's how high functioning, high achieving professionals, probably like yourself, become unintentionally dangerous to the very vision they are trying to lead. So you've gotten where you are by being capable, but that's a fine line between but there is a fine line, I should say, between being capable and being controlling. And that line, well, what happens, it usually is drawn in crisis mode. So let's dive into the cost of control in today's climate as it is. So we can talk about economic shifts. We know that's happening. We can talk about AI because that is a big thing, especially in advice types of industries and distributed workforces. And then we can also see how this applies with generational transitions. But the overall arching issue is control. You're looking for control in all of those situations. And that's understandably so. Excuse me. And right now, your organization doesn't need agility. It does need agility. You don't need to be rigid in those efforts. You don't need rigidity. So if your leadership models are built on control, you're about to get exposed. I hate to say it, but it's true. And not because you're not smart. You are smart, intelligent, all of those things. But because the environment has outgrown this model, you are still trying to hold on to it, and therefore you're going to be exposed. Why? Because control feels like safety, and that is an illusion. But in this economy, it can quickly become the very thing that causes stagnation, siloed thinking, and talent attrition. And if you're dealing with any of those things, be sure to comment down below and we can take a deeper dive into that. But leadership today demands a trust powered leverage, not a fear based grip. And it's easy to fear the economic shifts, fear AI, fear the generational transitions, fear the way the workforce is laying out, but you need to start putting in trust in those different areas. And so how do the elite leaders who are navigating through this, how do they level up across the spectrum of potential issues that are really, opportunities for growth? So letting go doesn't mean being passive. You need to put that out there. You're not being passive. You work too hard to be passive, but it does mean that you elevate your lens of control to influence and from reaction to responsibility. And so I want to insert this little kind of like little story, that I was watching an interview with Gary Vaynerchuk, but he goes by Gary V a lot of times. And he was on a kind of interviewish type panel with an executive from Samsung and he was giving like free media advice. Like that's what he does. He gives freely with content strategies and all those things because he truly wants people to win, whether you are the small person in the space or the top dog in the industry. And Samsung is one of those top dogs, but he was still giving them advice on influence. And he was essentially saying that no one is exempt from the fall, right? No one is exempt from the fall. And this executive was kind of being passive aggressive in her responses to what he was saying, because he was saying that Samsung is a powerhouse, but they could do more in the area of influence. And you can do that in different departments by leveraging trust and allowing your leaders to have more influence, especially in the social space. And all she was saying was she was just trying to get to her next question, and she was just brushing this off as like another KPI to do. Okay, we'll do that. Okay, we'll do that. Team, if you're listening, just put that down and we'll mark that as a KPI. And it was clear that she wasn't one open to receiving that help, but she wasn't ready to let go of a certain type of control. Like she felt that she's the marketing person for Samsung. I mean, I don't know if it was the entire Samsung, but she was one of the marketing people. And so she was at this high level. So, that was her job. And it was kind of giving, well, I hear you, but this is my thing, where this man lives, breathes, and eats, social media. But she was just kind of not willing to give up that control. And I personally see where those problems are going to happen in different departments. And you know what? I might need to reach out to Samsung and say, hey, I saw this interview, your executive. I mean, she may be great in all that what she does, but she is not listening to this opportunity because she is still trying to hold on control in those areas. So Samsung, if you're listening, or I may just come to you, be open. Remember, I said it here first. But let's get back into it. I just want to put that in there because you may be in that position. You may be the one, the go-to person, the top person in the company. You may not be the CEO, but you are like the go-to person. And then when someone comes in and sees a blind spot, not to show you up or not to say that you don't know what you're doing, but they're showing you a way that you can kind of relinquish control in certain areas so that you can do the work that truly matters and let your skill set and your expertise shine in that way. Okay, but I digress. I'm off my soapbox. So high level leaders who break the loop, this is what they do. They build decision-making cultures, not just approving cultures. And decision-making is a buzzword. Even when I was working in the education space and working with those leaders in that area, it was all about decision-making strategies. And it was like, honestly, that is not. It was just a nice buzzword that clearly is happening today, but it was really about approval. People coming in, not because they are decision makers or that they have the power to make decisions, but they were coming more of approval. So that was a type of bottleneck. So those who break that control, they do build decision-making cultures, not just in name only. And they train their teams to think, not just execute. And yes, you've heard on previous shows where I talked about the execution gap because it is major and people are not doing the work. They go through all these trainings, but they're not doing the work at the level that they could be doing. But also, I'm realizing that the reason why they're not doing it is because they're still waiting for somebody to tell them the next steps. So yeah, I can execute, but now I do this part, now tell me what to execute next, instead of learning how to think and then think where you need to execute. Those two go together. So the emphasis now is about training yourself and your team to think because you brought them on. They're brilliant in their own right, but they relinquished that control because you've taken control. Now you're giving it back to them and training them to think instead of just executing. And then they also shift from managing output to curating insight. And that means, like, I don't just want to see your results. Yes, results are great. We drive on those. We thrive on results. Like, you can't be in business or run an organization if you don't know your outcomes and your results. But what about the insights? What about what takes place before we get to the results? What are we focusing on along the journey? Destinations are great. We need the destinations, but there's something in the journey. There's something in the insights that needs to be pulled out and discovered and focus on. And that's where high level leaders who break that control loop, that's where they show up and shine. So your edge isn't in how much you can do. Let me say it again. Your edge isn't in how much you can do. It's in how well you can scale thinking, and that is your legacy. I think I either heard it from Earl Nightingale or somebody in that that crew, where they were saying that we don't think anymore as a society. And you can go back to Earl Nightingale and look up the date where he said this. I believe Napoleon Hill said it somewhere too. I was listening to all those people years ago, and so this just popped in my head that, well, ask yourself, when was the last time you actually sat down and just brain dumped and thought about something just for 20 minutes straight? Not implementing something, but allowing your brain to work through or think through a problem. It doesn't even have to be in your business, but since we're talking about leadership and your career things here, let's focus on that. When have you thought through a problem or a solution or an issue without trying to just get it done? Or think about in your life, when was the last time you sat down and said, I'm going to think about this one particular thing and allow my brain to go off into this rabbit hole? When was the last time you did that? People talk about schools don't teach critical thinking anymore, and that's awfully true. That's why years ago I used to say that everyone needs a STEM degree and or STEM adjacent, because when you do it for real, those types of situations allow you to really think critically. No disrespect to the other types of areas, but I'm just talking about because that's where my experiences is. So think about that. When was the last time you allowed yourself to think and allowed your team to think? And that will build your legacy. All right, so as we are wrapping up and I've given you something to go think about, comment down below and let me know that you are going to implement this. Or if you have any questions about, okay, I hear this, but what does that actually look like? Comment down below and I will be there to answer the questions, because I want to make sure that this monologue does transition into a dialogue. And if this episode stirs something inside of you, great. That means you're still in the game and you're not left behind. But now let's turn that insight into action. And the way to start that is with the Leadership Intelligence Index, or you'll hear me refer to it as the LII. And it's not just an assessment, it's not just a quiz that you take, but it is a conversation starter. And think of it as a mirror. It's a kind of prompt for a high-level dialogue you're probably not having often enough. So you are going to answer a few questions. It's about 10 questions, and it'll take you 5 to 7 minutes. And as soon as you answer it, you will get immediate results about where you are and across 5 different areas. And then when you get those results, and then you'll be giving a report for you to look at and see, like, how can I grow in these areas, whether you continue to have a conversation with me or you want to have a start of where you're going, a conversation started with yourself or your team, and then you'll see where your breakdown could be in your leadership across those 5 areas. Now, of course, there are more than those 5 areas, but like I said, this is just a conversation starter. This is just a mirror. This is a sort of a you are here now type of thing. There are so many things that are hitting you in your business or even in your career, but you just need something to say, okay, just bring it all in. Where can I focus, or where do I need to stop focusing and relinquish that control? So whether you're recalibrating your leadership growth or reimagining your organization's culture or simply sensing a shift in your season, the LII will help you get clear. And clear doesn't mean that, okay, now everything is already resolved. It's your one size fits all thing. That's not what clear means. That's not what clarity is. It is really about your next now step. So many people are looking for the final results or solve all of my problems, where you really just need to focus on what you to do now, next. And that's what clear means. That's what clarity means. And then those, you do those over and over, and then you'll realize that you're not as stuck as you think you are. So if you're ready to go deeper and you're open to a powerful strategic conversation with your team, with your board, or have me there to facilitate and navigate that, let me know down below and we can start that conversation. So this isn't just, hey, book a call and let's see what's up for you. I want you to use the LII as a starter to say, hey, we have all of these things locked and loaded, but I know that there's something else, and that's where I can come in and strategically look, because I have an outside perspective and to help you navigate through that. And that starts with a conversation so that you can go in another direction, because sometimes the smartest move you can make isn't just setting another goal, it is going into a new direction. And with all those things that are happening, whether you're in your business or you are a leader in a business, or even just leading your career, give yourself the gift of a starting point and a strategic conversation. So I want to leave you with this, that the illusion of control is seductive. We like that. It flatters your ego, it feeds your fears, and it keeps you busy. But real leadership isn't about control. It is about catalytic influence. So if you're ready to break out of the comfort of control and lead with audacity and authenticity, but that's used so much, but lead with audacity, be bold in that way, then this season is for you. This movement is for you. And this moment, it is yours. So thank you so much for listening and learning with me. I am Dr. V, and remember to stay on your edge. Until next time, bye.